Hello there and welcome to Granada Reports.
Here's what's on the programme tonight.
A broken system failing the most vulnerable in society, a damning criticism of Manchester's mental health service. Doctors tell us lack of funding and low staffing levels are putting lives at risk.
If your family member becomes unwell, and it can happen to any of us, then you're very unfortunate living in Manchester.
Languishing on long waiting lists and left feeling abandoned. We hear from the service users desperate for support.
If people really knew the truly what's going on, they'd be so horrified.
Elsewhere, a mother's fear that her brother's killer could be released on parole. Their story the focus of a new Netflix documentary.
The Shrimps will be sold. The owner of Morecambe Football Club tells Granada Reports that terms have been agreed to sell the club as fans plan to protest.
Banding together to save Salford Lads Club. We're live with performers Roller as they donate all proceeds from tonight's gig to the fundraising effort.
And in the weather, I think it's fair to say it has been pretty misty at times over the last couple of days, but there is some brightness in the forecast. Also, a lot of cold weather coming. All the details to follow.
Yeah, all that coming up. First tonight, people in crisis left feeling abandoned and alone by a broken system. This is just a snapshot of the stories we've heard from those involved with mental health services in Greater Manchester.
Tonight, there are more than 500 people with severe mental health issues waiting on a list and not receiving the help they need. And even when they are seen, it's often short-term fixes with no ongoing support.
One doctor described the situation as unsafe and said it is causing the premature death of some of the most vulnerable in society.
Our reporter Tasha Kachiri has this exclusive report.
We are the people that aren't going to get better, and to be provided with no service outside of a complete crisis is abandoning us, and we all have smaller lives because of it.
Desperate for support to stay well, but fighting a losing battle. Lisa is just one of the many people who've told me mental health services in Greater Manchester are broken.
If your family member becomes unwell, and it can happen to any of us, then you're very unfortunate living in Manchester.
People are being neglected and abandoned because they have long-term issues and no voice. And when you try and access help, there's nobody to give that help because the teams are overstretched, understaffed.
On Monday, early intervention mental health workers in Greater Manchester went on strike for 24 hours. They say poor staffing levels and lack of funding is putting lives at risk. Dr. John Mulligan was on the picket line.
The ratio of staff to service user is appalling in Manchester, so much so that it's actually quite an abusive system we're in at the moment, where people aren't not only not getting what they need, but there's a bit of a pattern, a repetitive cycle, where some of our service users can't even talk about positives in their week. They can't even talk about recovery and things that are going well because they're afraid of being discharged.
More staff, save lives, show us the money.
A worry for John's members is the unallocated list known as the waiting well list. He says there are 550 people with severe mental health issues on the list not currently receiving proper support. Many of those discharged have been left to fend for themselves.
There's not organisations really up and running that can handle the volume of service users that have been discharged from mental health services over the last few years.
Lisa, not her real name, has had in-person support for the last 25 years, but has recently been discharged from the waiting well service.
You were part of the unallocated list. How has that been?
I had no plan. There was no prospect of more help. It just seemed very basic, and like they were concerned about whether I would cause a problem for them, i.e. trigger an inquest if I killed myself.
And how does that make you feel when you think about how your life is because of the lack of support?
I'm terrified of becoming unwell again, which I know is inevitable. I'm not stable. Nobody cares. And even if they do care, they can't help.
Cup of tea and a hot meal with friends. This support group run by Annabelle, a retired community mental health nurse, has been a lifeline for many. She says things have changed drastically over the years.
When this group first started, I was still working, and everybody was under the community mental health team at the time. Everybody had a named care coordinator, usually a CPN, sometimes a social worker or an occupational therapist. Now in our group, and we've got to 35 to 40 people we're in touch with, 4 people have. People often get very unwell before they get help.
Craig has complex mental health issues and has been in and out of services for nearly 30 years. When he was first diagnosed, it took weeks for him to get a designated worker. With his latest relapse, it's taken 5 years. In that time, he lost everything.
My health degraded slowly and surely, and my fears of why I was trying to get help became more apparent. I struggled more with my own business that we managed to build up with my wife, and she had her business, and then it moved to me not being able to work. Then a psychosis dropped in, and that was me. I hardly left my room for about a year. So I just, if it had been 10 years ago, it might have been different.
For the people I've spoken to, getting support can mean the difference between life or death. While many fight to stay well, they're still hoping for a lifeline.
Well, we put the concerns raised to NHS Greater Manchester, and in a statement they've said, "We are fully aware that some individuals are struggling to access timely and appropriate support, and this is an area that requires urgent attention. We are committed to working with our partners to develop solutions that ensure more timely, effective support for individuals with serious mental health conditions."
Well, earlier I spoke to Brian Dow from the charity Rethink Mental Illness and began by asking him about their experiences of community mental health support.
The level of demand has skyrocketed over the last few years. So we're seeing 600,000 more people in contact with secondary services. And that's about a 45% increase in the last 5 years. And the system really cannot cope. And that is why you are seeing both the reality of people being told that they're not well enough to access services, and then sometimes people that are being told that they're too unwell. And unless we look at how we move the system and provide much better early preventative support and actually inject the funding to where it needs to go, I'm afraid I think this problem will only continue to get worse.
Brian, we're hearing some really worrying stories tonight of people who are waiting years to get the support that they need, and some people feeling abandoned. What needs to be done to fix this? Is this all down to funding?
A large part of it is due to funding, but actually we are caught in a perfect storm, because when there are delays to provide people with support when they have mental ill health, the only thing that happens, because people are often under a huge number of other pressures, such as perhaps their finances, they are isolated, is that those problems get worse, and therefore people's needs get greater. And so the need to provide more support increases. And we're caught in this really incredibly difficult problem. So what we need to do is detect, diagnose and provide people with support much quicker.
And we're also hearing some people saying that they feel alone and abandoned. So where can people go to get support, either for themselves or for a loved one?
Firstly, to go and see their GP. The 111 service is now available to people who are having mental health problems. There are also lots of charities such as Rethink Mental Illness and many others out there who can provide advice and support and information to guide people through what can sometimes feel like a complex, bewildering and frankly really frightening experience.
Brian from Rethink Mental Illness, thank you. Well, next tonight, a young mum fears the man who murdered her brother in Bolton may still be a danger to her family if he's released.
Ronald Mariner killed 7-year-old Ryan Mason at his home before dumping his body on a golf course, the same place where, as a teenager, he tortured another boy.
The sadistic killer is now the subject of a Netflix documentary as Ryan's family urge the parole board to keep Mariner in prison.
Our correspondent Elaine Wilcox covered the murder investigation at the time and has this report.
7-year-old Ryan Mason was a shy, kind little boy with a stammer, killed by his mother's boyfriend, someone he trusted. His sister was just 5 when Ryan was murdered.
It was horrible, really. I just wanted to be with him all the time. Like, I kept asking my dad, where's Ryan? I want Ryan, and I was getting upset with it. He was so kind, respectful. He'd never been hurt.
Ronald Mariner had been playing a video game with Ryan at home as his mother and older sister slept upstairs. He'd stabbed, choked and beaten the little boy with a hammer before dumping his body in bin bags on a nearby golf course. I covered the murder investigation and trial in 2002. It took a jury just 90 minutes to find Mariner guilty, to the relief of Ryan's father and family.
Very pleased with the verdict because it removes a very wicked man from society, whereby he's not going to get the opportunity to do this to any other children or young babies as he's done so before. He's based his whole defence on a whole sort of web of deceit and lie, the final and most wicked one of which being that he was trying to apportion blame on Lynn, Ryan's mum.
It took 2 days before Ryan's body was found. When Missing Turns to Murder is the subject of a Netflix documentary on the sadistic killer.
I went back to the police station and had a look at what we knew about Mariner by the intelligence system. What I found out was that Mariner had a history of violence to children. And I immediately became concerned. Not only has he attacked an 11-year-old boy and left him injured at a golf course, he'd actually assaulted his own baby son.
I know he has to be considered by the relevant people for parole, but unless they can convince people he's not a danger to society without admitting it, he's a throw away the key guy, he really is.
Mariner was sentenced to life to serve a minimum of 25 years. He's eligible for parole in 3 years' time.
You've taken part in the Netflix programme as a tribute to your brother, but you also have a message for the parole board.
If he's released, I'm scared, like, if he comes and my children's not going to know what he looks like or anything, and he just passes them in the street and they're not going to know that he's killed their uncle, basically. And I just don't want another family going through what me and my family went through, because it was so sickening and horrible.
Chloe has just her memories and a treasured T-shirt Ryan wore in his last photograph. There's been no confession or remorse from his killer, and her family want Mariner to stay behind bars. Elaine Wilcox, ITV News, Bolton.
Well, we spoke to the parole board, who confirmed Ronald Mariner has not yet been referred for a review of his possible release.
This evening's other news. Thai Food Tea has gone into administration after more than 120 years, blaming a break-in at its Wirral plant for substantial losses. More than 100 jobs are at risk after the company said the damage caused during the break-in in last August was responsible for the majority of its costs. They also blamed several years of declining sales and mounting debt.
The Prime Minister has told Airbus workers at Broughton today that the government will be investing nearly £1 billion in aerospace over the next 5 years. Sir Keir Starmer says the investment will help protect skilled jobs at the site near Chester and speed up innovation.
The Archbishop of Liverpool has put his name to a letter against assisted dying, claiming the proposed safeguards are woefully inadequate. Archbishop Malcolm McMahon, along with other Catholic bishops, is calling for better funded palliative care to be available to those in need rather than them being helped to die. The bill will be back in Parliament for its second reading at the end of November. Now, the Lancashire Fusiliers have a distinguished military history, including campaigns in World War I and World War II.
In more recent times, they've become the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, and 25 years ago, they were part of a large peacekeeping force sent to Kosovo.
Thanks to a photojournalist embedded with the unit back in 2000, a new exhibition of their time in the Balkans has opened at the Fusilier Museum in Bury. Paul Crone went along to find out more.
The war in Kosovo saw ethnic Albanians fighting ethnic Serbs and the government of Yugoslavia. When the conflict ended, the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers were part of Kosovo Force, KFOR, a NATO-led international peacekeeping force. Amongst the Fusiliers was Lance Corporal Paul Davis.
Normally, we've got two hands on the weapons all the time during the war fighting phase, but when we were there, we adopted what was called a G4 stance, where we just held the rifle in our right hand down by the side and it left the left hand free to wave, shake hands and do other things with other people, interact with people better.
Images captured by photojournalist Nick Seidel, who was embedded with troops, has become the latest exhibition at the Fusilier Museum in Bury. They show the unique work of peacekeepers and those caught up in the war.
Every single one tells a story. I would say to people, look in the frame. There's a story in the foreground. There's a story in the background. There's a reason for every single bit in the picture, in the image. And that is an art.
The relationship between us, i.e. the regiment, and these people continued thereafter. And the relationship remains close. And that's why we have this exhibition here today at the museum.
Paul Davis found himself confronted by mass graves, a result of ethnic cleansing during the conflict.
At that stage, my tours were only of Northern Ireland and Bosnia. So I saw a few things on them tours, but for that to actually be them on the front line to see this and the smells, as you say, in the heat, it's like, right, well, I'm a soldier, I'm here to do a job.
The war in Kosovo ended back in 1999, but it might surprise you to know that as of 2024, there are still 4,500 soldiers on peacekeeping duties there.
It tells you what happens in a world where intolerance and hate is allowed to run, where you don't do anything about it. What happens in the world where people have to live with it on a day-to-day basis?
Kosovo Plus 25 runs at the Fusilier Museum in Bury until next summer. Paul Crone, ITV News.
And it looks fascinating too.
Some fantastic images there, real snapshot in time there. Now, here's what's coming up on the news at 6:30 p.m. with Charlene.
4 teenagers and a man are convicted of murdering 2 boys with machetes in a case of mistaken identity. Max Dixon and Mason Rist were chased and attacked in Bristol after they were wrongly believed to be responsible for throwing bricks at a house. Plus,
I realised that I have to get it taken out.
Davina McCall reveals she's having brain surgery. She posted on social media saying she's having an op to remove what's known as colloid cyst. And a battle for the ages. Mike Tyson takes on YouTuber Jake Paul, 31 years his junior, in a boxing bonanza. So join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
We're moving on to sport now. Morecambe fans are planning to protest. Here's David to tell us more.
Yeah, they've not been happy with their owner for a while now. They want Jason Whittingham gone from the club. He also wants to go and has told me that terms to sell the League Two side have been agreed. Well, Morecambe were put up for sale more than 2 years ago now. And in that time, they've had a points deduction, a relegation and a transfer embargo. Preparing to protest, these lifelong Morecambe supporters are planning a demonstration to show their frustration with the club's owner. The side bottom of the Football League has been up for sale for 26 months now, and fans fed up with the lack of a takeover will take action tomorrow with a march outside the stadium ahead of their game with Port Vale and more protests inside.
As the game kicks off, we're all going to display black balloons to show our displeasure at the owner. On the 26th minute, we're all going to turn our back to the pitch for 2 minutes, and we're also going to hold up the for sale signs. The longer this goes on, the more concerning it is. Time's time now for him to come out, speak to us properly and get this sale over the line. Well,
since 2018, Jason Whittingham's Bond Group Investments has owned and funded Morecambe Football Club. He's told Granada reports he wants to sell, has agreed terms to sell, and is just as frustrated as the fans with the time it's taking. Despite all that, the supporters are at the point of protest.
I think the fans just feel really frustrated, and if, God forbid, the club goes out of existence in May, they feel they have to have done something to show their frustration at the lack of progress with the takeover.
Fans are frustrated. They've got every right. They spend much of their hard-earned money to travel all over the country, that they dedicate their week and their livelihood in order to follow this team. The least we deserve is some communication as to what's going on. We do not deserve that. This is a club that I've been following for over 30 years. We deserve better.
With one of the smallest budgets in League Two, the club are asking fans to keep their protests off the pitch to avoid fines. takeover is apparently closer than ever, with the UK-based buyers wanting to remain anonymous while they conclude their work with the EFL to get the deal done.
It's not moving as fast as we would all like. They're included in that process and they are keen to bring it to a conclusion. They see this as a long-term project. They don't want to be here for 5 minutes. They also accept this is a community football club and they want to maintain that close connection with the community of Morecambe.
I'm as confident now as I have been over the last 2.5 years. I think this is the nearest we've been to a deal. We want to be able to expand on the playing squad in January, so new funds coming in will be absolutely crucial to that.
With hopes of a brighter future in sight, a sale can't come quick enough for all involved with Morecambe Football Club.
Yeah, we'll watch for any developments there. Now, in his first interview since becoming the Manchester United boss, Ruben Amorim says he feels like he's where he's supposed to be. Well, the new head coach has been settling into life at the club with a look around Old Trafford, where he even surprised some lucky fans on a stadium tour.
I'm really, really proud to be a Manchester United coach. So it's amazing. It's a real an honor. I'm really excited and I'm quite relaxed, you know. I think I am where I'm supposed to be.
Finally tonight, the campaign to save Salford Lads Club has been given an important boost.
Local band Parole are due to take to the stage in a couple of hours and will donate all the proceeds from tonight's performance to the fundraiser.
And it could well be the last gig ever to be held at the iconic venue if they fail to raise £250,000 by the end of the month.
Well, Tim Scott is there for us this evening. This is quite the gesture, isn't it, Tim?
It is indeed, Anne, and I think it's a sign of just how high regard this beautiful old building is held in Manchester and beyond. This place made famous, don't forget, on the cover of the Smiths album, The Queen is Dead. Back to this evening's shenanigans, though. Let's have a quick look at what Parole are going to sound like for the fans later on tonight. Well, joining me now is James, the singer from the band Parole, who are playing here tonight, complete with his rock star shades on. James, why have you decided to donate all the cash from tonight's gig?
Well, you know, the club's been open for over 120 years, and for our generation to be the generation to see its doors close, we weren't having that. So we decided all the proceeds for this show are going to go back to those. We've got some merch on sale as well, so hopefully together we can keep the doors open and have a good time doing it.
Fantastic stuff. Joining me now is Laura from the Lads Club. Laura, for people who don't know, what does the Lads Club do here?
Yeah, so we are a youth organisation. We've been working with young people for 121 years. Wow. So we're still...
Important work in the community, I guess.
Absolutely, yes. We still operate as a youth club for young people. Okay. We've got different football programmes, and obviously the building's absolutely wonderful, and there's a lot of heritage and history.
Brilliant. We know that you needed this £250,000 by the end of this month. How close to the donations are you? How close to the target?
Yeah, so we're getting really close now. I think we're about £20,000 away from target.
And that's thanks to, like, celebrity donations, the likes of Morrissey?
Absolutely, yeah. Morrissey, Graham Nash, and Cortez. And thankfully bands like Roller as well doing things like this for us have been fabulous. Is
it fair to say you're quietly confident that you are going to hit your target and this place is going to be saved?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
If you could thank any of those celebrities who've donated, who would you thank first? Who'd be top of your list?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
Okay, Morrissey or Graham Nash, you have to choose. Who would you choose?
Oh, Cortinas.
Cortinas, hey, fantastic. OK, it does seem as though this place is on the way to being saved, and that's thanks in part to the local bands like Roller. Back to the studio.
Cortinas are playing Manchester tonight. My daughter is going.
Oh, fantastic band. Love them. Right, here's the weather with Emma.
Have you burnt tea again?
I'm scraping the cooled oil into the bin, not the sink.
Can we eat outside? It's nice.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. Well, we've been pretty spoilt with temperatures so far this month, but a big change is on the way, as you can see here, turning much colder with some snow in the forecast as well. There's a warning for snow, particularly at higher levels on Monday morning through to Tuesday morning, and a small chance of snow to lower levels where 5 to 10 centimetres could potentially be more disruptive. But there is low confidence on this, and also there's a lot of uncertainty in the forecast, and I'll show you why. So it's turning more unsettled. The high pressure that's been dominating is slipping away. Then a couple of low centres moving through on Sunday and Monday, and that's where some of the uncertainty comes in. The uncertainty of the intensity of the rainfall with the first low, and the uncertainty of the track with the second low on Monday. But you can see these cold colours flood the whole of the UK by midweek, and certainly you'll notice that change in feel and air mass from Monday onwards. Rewinding to the next few hours, the chilliest temperatures occur this evening around 6 or 7 Celsius, and then as the cloud increases with a system dropping southwards, in fact 2 systems dropping southwards, and then we see the temperatures increasing as well. So the first lot of showers move away. There's a narrow band of rain that drops southwards, but as you can see, by the time we get through to tomorrow morning, it's going to be quite a mild start to the day. It's the last supermoon of 2024 tonight, a beaver moon, so bigger and brighter than ever. Into tomorrow then, the sun's up at 7:41 and sets at 4:10 in the afternoon. And as I say, it's going to be a bit of a murky start, a damp day, overcast as the remnants of that system continue to pull away to the south there. It's going to be a mild start to the day, clearing to brighter spells later, the wind easing down as well, and then a really cold night Saturday into Sunday. That's it for now. Bye-bye.
It's a little bit burnt.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
So while we were listening to that, Chris just looked at me and went, "It's going to be rubbish, isn't it?"
It
Emma
is, though,
was
isn't
a
it?
lot more polite about it, a lot more sunny about it.
It's going to be grim.
What better excuse to stay in, watch ITV and join me on the late news after news at 10 tonight?
That's it for now. Bye-bye.